So if I'm a Tennessee fan heading into 2025, my expectations would likely be, well, hey, we just made the college football playoff. We bring back our quarterback. We bring back our head coach. We just re-up with our defensive coordinator who just had a top 5 defense. Like, we probably should be right back in the college football playoff. And I hear what you're saying, but I went to VolQuest, our Tennessee on 3 site, and asked y'all the question, hey, what are your questions in relation to Tennessee to get back to where you expect them to be and potentially achieve more than that? We'll unpack it right now. First, though, thank you to all of y'all from Tennessee, I guess Vol Nation really is the best way to say it, for being subscribed here. Massive Tennessee following on this channel. Thank you for that. If you haven't yet subscribed, no time like the present. Rounding that corner, jumping into spring football. Want y'all a part of it. Best way to be a part of it is by being subscribed. So I mentioned, I went to the General's Quarters, our VolQuest message board, and asked y'all, hey, what's your big question for 2025 around Tennessee? And we got a lot of different answers, but all of them were in the same vein. And the question goes as, can Nico take the next step? Can our wide receiver core elevate? Can the offense get back to a more wide open feel? And the vein that you guys were all sort of living in was, can the offense look how it looked in 2022? Because that was a magical run, right? We were able to be a part of it with y'all. I mean, we got this job at On 3 as Tennessee took off. Being in Nashville, covered a lot of the Vols. It was a good time for all of us. And while I see where you're coming from, I think we first have to look at what 2024 was before we look to 2025. Because my feeling is, when you look at 2024, Tennessee operated how they operated in large part because of what they had on defense. Like, does Nico need to improve? Absolutely. We're going to talk about him as we go forward. Does wide receiver room have some question marks? Absolutely. We're going to talk about that during this video. But you look at how Tennessee won games last year. You don't apologize for getting wins. And 4 of Tennessee's wins a season ago came with them scoring less than 30 points. Now, I say that out loud, and you say, okay, yeah, it kind of lines up with who we were. We ran the football. We played great defense, kind of a smash-mouth, gritty operation. Great. Tell me more, JD. Well, that hadn't really been Tennessee's MO when it comes to scoring less than 30 points a game. In fact, only one other game in Josh Heupel's career in Knoxville has Tennessee scored less than 30 points and won a football game. So you sort of get this flavor of, is this just who we're going to be? Was that a one-off? And can we get back to being that team that scored in the 40s, it felt like every single week, with Hendon Hooker back there dropping dimes to Jalen Hyatt? Or how would that happen? I think for some of this discussion around Tennessee from last season, there has to be an understanding in that when you have a really good defense, as an offense, your goal is to score enough points, of course, but at the same exact time, your goal is not to screw it up. And that was Tennessee a year ago, I think, with a first-year starting quarterback. Now, some of that, I think, is there's legitimate concerns about what you didn't have personnel-wise at the skill players, and I think that's probably fair to have a discussion about, or the offensive line not always being on the same page or whatever. But, like, for Tennessee to have the luxury of not having to score 30 points a game, and to score 30 points every game, rather. They average just over 30 points a game. But to have a top 5 defense in America that you can lean on and say, hey, if we score 24, that might be enough today, boys. Great. More power to Josh Heupel. So as much as we dunk on the offense for the way that they maybe missed expectations going into 24, I think what they were in 2024 was just, again, what I said, a real deal bully up in the trenches. And so that's great for last season, but you look to next year, as much as you're proud of the top 5 defense from a year ago, I don't know if that's the best way to do business. Like, I don't know if you want to rely on a top 5 defense every single year to get to where you want to go. Because as we look to, the future of Tennessee football, James Pierce is gone. You brought back Tim Banks, but there will be some holes you have to patch up on the defensive side. And so if you have a top 5 defense next year, phenomenal. I think you are not pleasantly surprised, but you are pleasantly encouraged, obviously. But offensively, I think it's going to take a little bit more to get back to where you were last year. So what would that require? My big question, or my big variable for Tennessee, is can Josh Heupel max out his talent? Because that's what happened in 2022, right? A microcosm of this is Jalen Hyatt. He was the number 31 wide receiver in America coming out of high school. He eventually went on to go win the Biletnikoff. Hendon Hooker transfers away from Va Tech and probably should have been a Heisman Trophy finalist. Maybe he would have been had he not gotten hurt against South Carolina. Not saying they did more with less, but Josh Heupel did more with everything he had in his locker room. Like they did not have a better roster than Alabama and Nick Saban when they beat them in Knoxville in 2022. Why did they get it done? Because Josh Heupel, one, is a tremendous play caller and offensive mind, and two, again, they maxed out their personnel, whether it's game plan, whether it's development, however you want to slice it, they maxed out their personnel to the nth degree, and in a lot of ways, in the context of what that season was, overachieved. Now, overachieved is kind of a dirty word, but like you're not using that word around Tennessee anymore. You expect to be in the playoff. Take a second right now. How awesome is it if you're a Tennessee Volunteer fan that missing the playoff would be underachieving? That's where Josh Heupel has brought you to. And he's brought you to that spot by what I just said a second ago, by being able to max out what you have on your roster. So what I want to make sure we say here is I have a lot of questions around Tennessee. I have a lot of concerns around Tennessee in 2025. I do. I've been transparent about that. I will continue to be transparent about that. I think the receiver needs to be better. Need to see more from Nico. I want to see the defense duplicate last year's effort. That's all very much so out in front of us, showing you all our cards. But what I can't get out of my mind is what I would call the Heupel effect, which we've talked about here a little bit. And I want to comp it to something on this show, which I call the Cato effect. Caden Smith, produced for us here at On 3. I have an idea. We'll talk some shop. And it could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes. But whenever we talk about a certain segment we're going to do, immediately we get more out of that segment. That's the Heupel effect with this roster. It might be a couple of 3 stars. It might be some names you never heard of. It might be a true freshman and Travis Smith having to step up and play big minutes for you next year. But if you can get more out of that, Tennessee's going to have a chance. So for me, when you talk about Nico and his progress, I don't think it's a matter of talent. I really don't. I don't think the industry just whiffed on what he was as a prospect. We had him as the number 1 player in America coming out of high school. And I stand by that. I trust Charles Power. I trust Cody Belair. I don't think anybody last year saw Nico Iamaleava and said, man, he just can't do it. He just physically, I don't know, the arm strength, the mobility. Nobody's saying that. What everyone's saying is, can he get on the same page with his receivers? Can he connect on the deep ball? All those things. And so in regards to how we talk about Nico, I don't think it's a conversation about can he do it. It's a question to me of can he see it? Because I have multiple games now where I've watched him and been like, he's getting away with this because he's so talented, but there's probably some more juice he can squeeze out of this game as he gets more reps under his belt in an 11-on-11 real college football Saturday kind of environment. And he's gotten that now. So what successful people do is they take their failures, or their lumps is a better way to say it, the lumps that you took against Georgia last year, the lumps that you took against Ohio State in the playoff, and you learn from that. And the lumps that you took are the reason why you're successful the next time around. So if Nico Iamaleava takes those experiences, gets in the film room, maybe gets on the Jaden Daniels virtual reality, I don't know, maybe gets in the lab a little bit, that could change the entire trajectory of Tennessee football if he takes that next step. Now, again, I need to see it. We have not seen it yet, but if you can do that and pair it with some guys in the receiver room elevating, like a Mike Matthews who's staying, a Chris Brazzell transfer from Tulane from a year ago who, quite frankly, what I saw behind closed doors in spring practice lit it up. If that can all come together, we could see the Heupel effect. And Tennessee could max out their talent, the defense could show up, and we could be talking about the Vols once again being in the playoff mix. Do you have to squint a little bit from where I'm sitting to see that? Sure, but given the schedule, and given what they have internally, and given who their quarterback again could be, I don't think it's irresponsible to have that discussion. So Tennessee fans, appreciate y'all adding to the conversation. Again, we're going to be pretty active on the Generals quarter here going forward. Tennessee On 3 message board. So lock in there. Make sure you're subscribed. But let me know your thoughts on this conversation around your biggest question for Tennessee in 2025. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Cato on the 1s and 2s, myself, JD PicKell. We will keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all next time.